Hey everybody, I have a group of students from the University of Pittsburgh at Johnstown with me to introduce our podcast about social emotional learning, which is often referred to as SEL. My name is Paytin Engleka, and I'm a junior, early childhood and special education major, and I also am minoring in psychology. I also have my group members who I would like to introduce themselves.
My name is Courtney. I am also a junior, and I am also an early childhood with special education major.
My name is Hanna Goller. I am a junior, and I'm also majoring in early childhood education with special ed.
My name is Kendra Fox. I am a junior, and I am majoring in elementary education.
And I am Madison, France. I'm also a junior and majoring in early ed with special ed.
I'm Farabaugh, and I am a junior, also a dual certification.
Before we begin our podcast, we would like to just breathe. Follow along for the next 20 seconds and relax. Before we get into the content of our podcast, I would like to introduce the professionals that we had the pleasure of interviewing to gain new knowledge about social and emotional learning. I will start with Dr. Mark Greenberg, who is the founder of Casses, the Collaborative for Academic, Social, and Emotional Learning. He is the director of the Prevention Research Center for the Promotion of Human Development at Penn State University. He has written more than 100 articles on understanding human development. For over 40 years, Dr. Greenberg has been working to improve the PATHS curriculum to improve the social and emotional learning of children in school. Mrs. Julie Eppley graduated from Indiana University of Pennsylvania with a master's in education. She then began working in Fairfax County Public Schools, and then she transitioned to becoming a guidance counselor for the IU-8. Mrs. Eppley currently works as the guidance counselor at Forest Hills Elementary School. She works with students individually and in large groups on social emotional skills daily, both in and out of the classroom. Dr. Melissa Casses is currently the assistant professor of special education at the University of Pittsburgh at Johnstown. She began her studies with a bachelor's degree in psychology, a master's in clinical rehabilitation counseling, and a doctorate in education, specifically curriculum and instruction. She has now been a professor at the University of Pittsburgh Johnstown for 4 years. Dr. Casses has also been an adjunct professor at Indiana University of Pennsylvania and West Virginia University for counseling. Mrs. Laura Bowers began her career in the field of social work, where she spent about 8 years. She then transitioned into the field of education, teaching all grades 1 through 8 at some point. She has spent most of her time as a reading intervention teacher, but has also had experience with coordinating gifted education. She is now an adjunct professor at the University of Pittsburgh at Johnstown and a teacher at Somerset Elementary School. According to D. Hoffman from the University of Virginia, social and emotional learning refers to the programs that attempt to enhance emotional literacy and/or the development of what are perceived to be fundamental social and emotional skills and competencies. Within social and emotional learning, there are 5 categories that include self-management, responsible decision-making, relationship skills, social awareness, and self-awareness. We've heard one definition of social and emotional learning, but we have asked a few of our professionals their own personal definition based on the experiences they have had in their career. We first asked Mrs. Eppley to share what she thought social and emotional learning was. She explained the following.
How you are understanding your own feelings, how you understand your reactions with other people in those relationships, like what do relationships mean to you? How do you work through conflict? How do you work through good times? It's basically just an understanding of yourself the things that make you feel good, the things that make you feel angry, what makes you feel sad, and then how that maybe ties into some of your relationships, whether it's like family members or friends.
In her own definition, Mrs. Eppley explained a couple of the 5 categories of social and emotional learning, such as relationship skills, self-awareness, and social awareness. Next, we asked Mrs. Bowers her personal definition, which stems from more experiences within the classroom.
Social emotional learning, which is basically that students are learning social skills that support their emotional development within the school day. And I mean, emotional development can be anything from, coping with disappointment to learning how to socialize appropriately with peers that maybe they don't like, but, that they can learn to treat with kindness.
We heard Mrs. Bowers explain self-awareness skills, which is incredibly important to SEL. A common argument for the advocacy of social and emotional learning is that students cannot learn until they have control of their emotions, which we heard Mrs. Bowers mention previously. She also explained kindness through the example of working with people you might not always like. Through SEL, students can learn these skills that will guide them through their education and in life. Next, Dr. Greenberg shares his thoughts from when we asked his own personal definition of SEL.
I'd best define it as skills and knowledge and attitudes that help people to get along with others, to persist and engage in learning, and to have a better awareness of their own nature, their own feelings, their thoughts, their goals, etc.
Dr. Greenberg explains how social and emotional learning can teach students persistency, which is important because we do not want our students to just give up when their work gets challenging or they are faced with extra stressors. As educators, we must equip students with the skills to problem solve and persist through challenging times and situations. Now that we know their personal definitions of SEL, we can see what it currently looks like from 2 of our professionals who are in the elementary school every day. Mrs. Bowers and Mrs. Eppley both used 2 different approaches to teaching social and emotional learning, but both ways were easily incorporated into their lessons.
So I talked to them about, a rock, you can't transform it. You can't change it. Like, you can paint it or you can smash it into pieces, but you can't manipulate it. And then you have Play-Doh that you can manipulate it. You can make it into a cat. You can make it into a snowman. So we talk about, with COVID especially, like rock problems. So problems that we can't change, we have no control over. COVID was here. Our governor said that the schools are going to be closed. Like, those were things that we do not have control over. But then I talked to them about focusing on the things that they can control. And it basically is, your circle of control is you. It's how you react to things. It's your actions. It's your words. So if we focus on those rock problems, those things that we can't control, it is only going to add an element of frustration and feeling overwhelmed and feeling helpless. So I tell them, instead of focusing on those, to focus on the Play-Doh problems.
Mrs. Bowers then explains an approach that she has used in her classroom to teach about the skill of courage.
Courage was one of the traits earlier in the year, and we read the book Jabari Jumps, and it's about a little boy who is taking a dive off of the high dive, and we talked about bravery and how we build up to bravery and courage, and so it gives them something to relate to and then come back to again. Mm-hmm.
We've heard how effective social and emotional learning can be taught in schools, so we wanted to learn why or how educators could be opposed to teaching SEL in the classroom. When we asked Mrs. Bowers her thoughts on what could be considered a con to social and emotional learning, she provided us with a great explanation.
Some of the coping mechanisms or the skills that you're addressing with kids could be perceived as values. And I know that there are parents who are skittish about values being taught at school. So being very careful with how you're framing what you're teaching, and looking at it as, could it be misconstrued as I'm trying to force a value on a child.
The argument that SEL can teach values is valid, and it is important that we do not offend our students' personal beliefs. However, there is a fine line between what is taught and how it's taught. SEL provides students with the opportunity to learn skills that will help them be functional members of society. We asked Dr. Greenberg his belief on what could be a con of social and emotional learning. He explained the following.
And what schools sometimes do is they pick a non-evidence-based model, they implement it poorly because they don't train the teachers effectively, and then it has no outcome, and that's a con.
Using evidence-based procedures to instruct social and emotional skills is a safe way for teachers to avoid teaching personal values. Now that we understand how to appropriately address the 5 categories of social and emotional learning, we wanted to understand how we as teachers can be kept effective in our practices. One of the 5 categories of SEL is relationship skills. The ability for a student to form stable and trusting relationships is also dependent on the people around them. For teachers, if we are able to provide our students with the opportunity to form a trusting relationship, we are giving them a great opportunity towards success.
Kids don't tend to learn from people they don't like. And so if your first and foremost thought is that I don't need the kids to like me, I'm not here to be friends with them. Well, no, we're not here to be friends with them, but we are here to be friendly with them. We're not here to just be nice to them. We're here to be kind. And those two things are different.
During our conversation with Dr. Casses, we asked her to provide us with advice for teachers. Her advice stems from her experiences with children throughout her career.
1/3 of what makes an effective teacher effective is the ability to build and maintain positive relationships with their students. So that's a two-way street. So we have to teach the students how to maintain those as well.
We are really able to understand through Dr. Cassis' advice that we are all human at the end of the day. We should be treating our students with the same respect we would expect out of them. As we are learning more about SEL, Dr. Cassis explained that the school day will have its stressors and there will be days where the student's behavior is not meeting expectations, but those are prime moments where social and emotional skills can be taught. Dr. Cassis reminded us that if we yell at a student, we can use that opportunity to genuinely apologize to the student and say, "I'm sorry." The students might not remember the exact scenario, but they will remember how it made them feel. And if we can be role models to students, they have better chances of being respectful, kind, and apologetic members of society. When we asked Dr. Cassis what she thought the purpose of SEL was, she explained the following.
I think SEL and citizenship kind of go hand in hand. They're if you really step back, it's one and of the same topics. And so if we're really teaching students how to be good citizens, we have to do it through social emotional learning.
The main point that she emphasized throughout answering her question was that SEL can teach the necessary skills for students to be successful members of society as they grow up. Next, Dr. Greenberg related the idea of how effective SEL instruction can produce effective members of society.
If we think that the objective is just to improve the state achievement test scores on reading and math, then there's no need for social emotional learning because we think school is just about achievement. But if we think school is actually preparing us to be active citizens in a democracy, to have healthy adulthoods and good marriages, et cetera, then and have a sense of meaning and purpose, then it's important.
We heard Dr. Greenberg say that school is not only for teaching academic skills, but for creating active members of a democracy. This is important to remember because students cannot perform to the best of their ability if they are not able to manage their own emotions and solve problems that may be in the way of their education. Finally, we wanted to further understand the importance of taking care of ourselves in order to be the most effective teacher for our students. Dr. Cassis was able to provide us with a great piece of advice.
Teaching is acting sometimes, and we can have like a tornado happening behind us, like, oh my gosh, my dog needs to go to the vet, all these things kind of flooding around us. But we have to be, when we step into the classroom, we become actors. Like, nothing's wrong in my life, and we're putting it out there because we're nurturing little babies to become people. And it's so incredible, and it's such a big, like the gravity of that's huge, but we have to take care of ourselves. Once that, time for the day is done and you've graded what you need to grade and prepared what you need to prepare, you gotta go home and chill.
As Dr. Casses mentioned, it is important to spend time during the day relaxing and gathering our thoughts. We would like to thank you for joining our podcast today about social and emotional learning. We hope that you have gained new knowledge that will be useful to you in and out of the classroom. We would also like to offer a special thanks to our professionals, Dr. Mark Greenberg, Dr. Melissa Casses, Mrs. Julie Eppley, and Mrs. Laura Bowers for allowing us to interview you. You have all provided us with valuable content that will help educate many future teachers. Your information and time is greatly appreciated.